This workshop includes a number of presenters that are going to talk about their relationship with organic seed and working with other stakeholders to develop organic seed systems. This session actually grew out of a workshop that we've done a number of times at Organicology that we previously called Plant Breeders to Eaters. And that session, by and large, focused on plant breeders, farmers, chefs, and seed growers. And we had some really rich discussions and facilitated brainstorming about how we can work together in identifying gaps and needs for organic seed systems. But what we realized every year, we happened to schedule it during a time when the produce folks were caught up in other sessions. So we decided to really try to emphasize in this workshop that we want to bring the rest of the trade into this conversation and not just make it, the jumping gap between a plant breeder all the way up to the chef, but what about all of the other stakeholders in between those two participants? So just to start out, could I see a show of hands? How many farmers do we have in the room?
Wow.
How many seed company representatives? How many seed growers? How many plant breeders? How many farmer plant breeders? How many produce retailers? Yay. How many distributors, wholesalers, processors? Anybody from the organic processing world, food products? Chefs? Just random eaters that decided to come in. Okay, good.
Real serious ones.
Thank you. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll have a number of speakers just giving a little bit of the framework of seed systems, the state of organic seed. Kristina Hubbard is going to start out by sharing a report of the state of organic seed after David has a moment to say a few words about the session. And then we have Llewellyn from the Port Townsend Food Co-op. She's going to be speaking about work that they've been doing in the retail level. We have Haynes from Ashland Food Co-op, and we have Adam Wagner from Organically Grown Company. So they're going to share their three perspectives, but we're going to try to get through these vignettes fairly quickly so that they really provide some framework for an engaged discussion with all of you. So we're hoping to move, we have 2 hours today, but we're hoping to move fairly quickly into that point of the session when we can begin to brainstorm some additional initiatives that could be started to support seed or think about some proactive solutions to address some of the challenges that we all have in engaging in seed. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. David.
Alive.
I think you are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you who saw my little mini keynote last night, definitely one of my big agendas is the concept of moving the consumer to the eater and now to the co-producer. And I definitely believe for us to get where we want to go, we need people who eat food, who don't grow food, but who eat food, to be much larger participants in the food system in terms of its design and its relevancy to their lives. And I think one of the best pathways to get that done is this pathway, in terms of how seed producers and breeders interact with the trade, in terms of figuring out what's really going to work and at every level. And one of my criticisms of the process to date is most seed companies do a damn good job of interacting with growers in terms of how things perform in the field, and they've been charmed and really like hanging out with chefs. But the two people that are missing in that is the eater to a high degree and the retailer to a pretty high degree. We mostly just inherit whatever we're given by those other forces. So chefs can move research more than a retailer can at this point. They can go, we want chicories. I love chicories, it's a cool idea, but I'm more concerned with tomatoes, where there's a staggering amount of volume or whatever it is. So how do we get that to happen? And we've all got roles in it. Definitely us, Organically Grown as a distributor working with retailers, has a big role in it in terms of how we can do some of that, and some of the people here today will discuss that. So I just wanted to, do what I call a tale of two tomatoes, and it's just the kind of experience, and it's only a sampling kind of experience that we have at our end as a distributor. So the first tomato I want to talk about is the early girl tomato. And early girl is a well-designed piece of fruit in terms of coming on early and giving you pretty good eating. It's not staggering, but it's pretty good. And years ago, I saw the organic trade as having an opportunity to have something the conventional trade did not have at all. And that was because Del Cabo, down in Baja, California, was packing single-layer early girls and shipping up during the winter. And I wrote an article that was in Oregonian at that point. Marty McPhee wrote some articles. We had a true, clear advantage and distinction from the conventional trade in terms of tomatoes in the winter. They had crap, and we had a pretty good tomato. I thought we were on the road to success with that. Reality was the early girl doesn't ship worth a shit. It's got a very thin skin, and it breaks down. And so Del Cabo, it was a popular tomato. People are buying it like crazy, and distributors and retailers are losing half the fruit. And eventually Del Cabo just said enough, and they got out of that tomato. And if you come into our warehouse this time of year, we got lots of tomatoes, and they pretty much all suck. A lot of tomatoes on the vine. They hold up well. They're going to look good on Barry's rack. But come on, it's not really a tomato. It's something else. It has aspirations to be a tomato. But we didn't have our act together to go. This is a deal we can move. We can move a lot of it. We can really distinguish ourselves. And where are our issues, and how do we deal with those issues? Instead, we just lost the program. So that was one of them. The second one was what we experienced when heirlooms hit the market and hit the retail market. And this one is the one that really showed me how our lack of organization and forethought could bite us in the ass. And these problems take care of themselves eventually, but they create a lot of havoc in the meantime. So heirlooms are out there, obviously, and pretty much the way a lot of these things reach the retail market is they're coming through farmers markets. They're coming through CSAs. Growers are growing them. These things don't have to ship. They can just go straight up for killer, culinary aspects of whatever they're producing. So these heirlooms are hitting the market, and people are kind of sorting them out. Growers know which ones they sort of want and all. Well, it's at the farmer's market, then it's in Sunset Magazine, and we used to say when we were farming, when it hits Sunset, that's time to get some seed, because people are going to be looking for this deal. So all of a sudden, there's cry for heirlooms. Well, what we get is, we don't get anything that has sorted out what are good or bad heirlooms. You just start getting heirlooms. And these are incredibly expensive heirlooms at the beginning of this journey. So we're buying flats, and we're pulling in 10 different varieties of heirlooms. And we're creating point of purchase information on all these different boxes of greens and yellows and reds and blacks and tomatoes for the retailer. And these things are selling $7, $8 a pound in the store, and half of them suck. They're not really that good a tomato. And a lot of people are taking these things home, and they paid literally $4 for a tomato, $5 for a tomato. It's bland, or it breaks down relatively quickly. And retailers are taking massive hits. And people start figuring out which ones are good and which ones aren't, and they start self-selecting. So you've got this big display of heirlooms, and 2 days later, all the good ones are gone. Because people know that the Cherokee's the one to get, the Brandywine's the one to get, leave that yellow one alone or whatever. And so the retailers are still taking hits. And it took us about 2 years to sort out the heirloom deal in terms of figuring out which ones are really going to move in the marketplace, which ones are going to people take off the shelf, which are going to hold up long enough you can get it sold, and bringing the price point into a place where it really made sense in the marketplace. And we could have, theoretically, mitigated that whole deal if we'd known how to route our research and our development and our work from the seed in to the distributors to the retailers in the presentation. Our point of purchase information could have been much more dialed in than this sheet that's this big that shows tomatoes this big and 6 lines out of seed catalogs as to what those are. So those, my interest is definitely in how do we get all the parts of this chain linked together. I really think we need to be talking to retailers in terms of, what is on your rack, what works about it, what doesn't, what are people saying to you, way more engagement from the retailer in this process. And the retailer really needs to be talking to the eater about it and really teaching these people they are a co-producer. My vision would be that if we're developing a squash variety or tomato variety, that is on display in stores, and there's someone who can explain what's going on, that this is in development, and have people eating it and getting feedback. And when I come back a year later, that person's in the store and going, this is what we did in the last year. This is version 2 of the same tomato. Now I'm not an eater, now I'm part of the system, and I'm part of, wow, I'm helping to actually create food and design the food of the future. And that's when we get the co-producers that are really gonna move this cake forward. So that's my wrap.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to have such a group of such diverse stakeholders in the room. For those of you who aren't familiar with Organic Seed Alliance, we're a nonprofit that works nationally to advance ethical seed solutions to meet food and farming needs in a changing world. And we do this through research hand in hand with farmers, public plant breeders at our land-grant universities, as well as food companies, as you'll hear from some of our panelists today. And our work focuses on identifying existing varieties as well as developing new varieties that are adapted to organic production systems. And then our education program delivers dozens of courses each year to teach farmers how to grow seed, not just for their own use, but how to grow organic seed for the commercial marketplace so that they can help support and build a more robust organic seed supply. And then our advocacy program promotes policies and actions that support the ongoing growth and success of organic seed systems, the very systems that our research and education programs really aim to foster. And one of the ways that we measure the progress that we're making, and not just we as an organization, but the progress of our organic community and the seed industry in meeting the organic seed needs of farmers, is through an ongoing project of ours called the State of Organic Seed Project. And our State of Organic Seed report, which we're committed to updating every 5 years, helps us monitor how we're doing in increasing the diversity, quality, and integrity of the organic seed available to organic growers here in the United States. Our most recent report was published this past June, and it was our first 5-year update, which allowed us to have comparable metrics for the first time to, again, measure the progress we are making in meeting the organic seed needs of growers. And before sharing just a few highlights of our findings, as well as some recommendations, I want to touch on a couple of our bigger long-term goals for the State of Organic Seed Project. The first is that long-term we envision an organic food supply that is built on a foundation of organic seed. We believe that organic integrity is essential to the credibility of the organic label, and beginning with the first critical input of seed. As many of you know, organic seed is a requirement in the organic rules, but when the rules were established, the organic seed industry was really in its infancy, and while we've made really good progress in building the organic seed supply, we still have a ways to go to fully meet the diverse and regional needs of all organic operations. It will never be our intention as an organization to promote policies and actions that force growers to use seed that's not optimal for their farm. At the same time, our State of Organic Seed report provides a number of recommendations, a roadmap really, for ensuring that we are making more progress in how much organic seed is being sourced in the United States by our growers to expand both organic seed acreage and the amount of food produced, beginning with organic seed. Secondly, we want to build a robust organic seed supply to help organic operations meet a regulatory requirement, for sure, but we also believe, more importantly, that building organic seed systems has far-reaching positive impacts for food and agriculture broadly. This is especially important as we face 3 of the most historic mergers in the seed industry, mergers that really threaten to further consolidate and privatize our plant genetic resource base. And we believe strongly that the organic community has an obligation to set a very different path, to create a very different path for organic seed that's distinct from the conventional and biotech seed sector, so that we don't follow some of the troubling trends that we are now experiencing today. And we believe that we can create organic seed systems that are responsive to the needs of organic growers, regardless of scale, crop types, and region, while still adhering to the principles of decentralization and shared benefit and open access to seed. So those are 2 of some of the bigger overarching goals of our project. So how are we doing? What is the state of organic seed? Our report, which you can find at stateoforganicseed.org, is quite lengthy. You'll find more than 100 pages of findings and data sets and recommendations. And I'm just going to touch on a few highlights today to note some of the progress we've made and identified with this first 5-year update, as well as areas where we have seen little or no progress. And just quickly, I wanted to share our methods, which included we conducted a national survey of certified organic crop growers. We conducted a survey of organic certifiers, organic seed suppliers, as well as researchers who receive funding for organic seed research, including organic plant breeding. We also conducted a detailed analysis of both public and private investments going toward organic plant breeding and other organic seed research. And finally, we held 8 listening sessions across the U.S. in 2014 and 2015 at organic farming conferences so that we could hear from other stakeholders who weren't targeted by our formal surveys. So all of the findings are informed by these methods. First, in terms of progress, we found that organic farmers report that they are indeed sourcing more organic seed. Through our survey, we found that 27% of organic growers are already using 100% organic seed, and that more than a third of them reported increasing the amount of seed organic seed they're using compared to 3 years prior. And this demonstrated an improvement from our first report published in 2011, and these numbers were across crop types. Secondly, we found that organic farmers were generally more satisfied with the quality of organic seed that they were using. They reported fewer problems, quality issues such as seed-borne disease, organic varieties not being true to type, low germination rates. They reported fewer quality problems with organic seed than they did 5 years ago. And we found that about 75% of the farmers responding to our survey had about the same problems with organic versus non-organic conventional seed, again demonstrating an improvement since our first data set in 2011. We also found an increased understanding among farmers responding to our survey that organic seed is important to their success as organic growers and to the broader success or to the success of the organic industry more broadly. 85% of the organic farmers responding to our survey agreed that organic varieties bred in and for organic production systems was important to the integrity of organic agriculture as well as their success as organic producers. This is a picture of one of our participatory sweet corn breeding projects. We also saw tremendous improvements, an increase, I should say, in public and private investments going toward organic plant breeding and other organic seed research. $22 million have been invested in the last 5 years alone in these types of projects. In our first report published in 2011, we documented a mere $9 million going toward these projects. And while this dramatic increase is something to celebrate, we also need to keep in mind that this investment still pales in comparison to the amount of research dollars going toward research, plant breeding efforts that too often do not benefit organic farmers and the markets and customers they serve. 80% of the projects funded in the last 5 years involved organic plant breeding and variety trial type work, and the top few funders included USDA's Organic Research and Extension Initiative Program, a Farm Bill program, SARE, Sustainable Ag Research Education Grant Program, as well as other federal funding sources. There was a significant new contributor since our first report in 2011, and that was the Cliff Bar Family Foundation. They were the fourth largest contributor to these investments in breeding and other seed research for organic systems. And if any of you have questions about how this funding was used in which regions, I'd be happy to answer more questions later on. So where are the areas that we saw little or no progress in organic seed system development? First, if you recall the figure I shared a minute ago where 27% of organic farmers report using 100% organic seed right now, that means that more than 2/3 of organic operations are still relying on non-organic conventional seed to some extent for their production systems. At times, they're relying on seed that was produced in highly chemical intensive production systems that are in conflict with organic principles. Secondly, while we saw improvements in acreage planted to organic seed for most crop types, in forage crops we actually saw a slight decrease in the amount of acreage planted to organic seed. Third, we found that the largest organic operations still use relatively little organic seed. And of course, this has a huge impact on overall acreage planted to organic seed here in the United States. Sorry if it's hard to see some of these slides there for those of you in the back, but this slide shows data from our vegetable producers where growers with 10 acres or less on average are planting about 75% of their acreage to organic seed. As acreage increases, we see that less organic seed is used and planted. By the time we get to 480 acres and larger, only about 20% of that acreage on average is planted to organic seed. This is a challenge for sure in terms of moving toward increased usage of organic seed. And of course, there are a number of reasons why organic growers aren't sourcing more organic seed, from an exact or equivalent variety that they're looking for it not being available in an organic form. Quantity of a specific variety in an organic form is a major issue, especially for these larger operations. And price is still a factor, even though price is not an allowable reason not to source organic seed under the organic rules. The opportunity to make more rapid and efficient progress in planting more acreage to organic seed could happen, we believe, by focusing on some of these larger operations, and perhaps we can talk about that more in our discussion. But just as one example, too often these larger operations are growing under a contract with a buyer, and that buyer dictates which variety needs to be grown, and too often that variety isn't available in an organic form or in the quantity that they need. And so there's a lot of work to do in the way of bringing different stakeholders together to plan ahead and identify which varieties could be grown or contracted, say, a year or more in advance in an organic form, in order to help us help some of those larger operations meet that organic seed requirement. But it takes a lot of different people coming to the table: organic seed production companies, the buyers themselves, as well as the growers they're contracting with. Lastly, we found a significant change in farmers reporting that their organic certifiers encourage them to take extra measures to source more organic seed. In our most recent report, 40% of farmers reported that their certifiers were encouraging them to take extra measures, such as going beyond 3 seed catalogs or conducting organic variety trials on their farm. That number was flipped with our first report in 2011. 60% of farmers responding to our survey that year reported that their certifiers were encouraging them to take extra measures. And this is important because not only does it underscore the important role that the certification community plays in encouraging increased usage of organic seed as appropriate and enforcing that organic seed requirement in a reasonable and measurable way, but we also found in our data in the second chart here that when certifiers encourage growers to take extra measures to source organic seed, they indeed respond accordingly. And our data shows that they do source more organic seed. So I'm just going to touch on a few of the ongoing challenges here. And our report includes 35 recommendations for addressing these and other challenges. And our hope is that these recommendations in our report serves as a roadmap for the broader organic community over the next 5 years as we work to implement some of the recommendations before researching and writing our next 5-year update. First of all, the organic certification community, who I had the pleasure of speaking with a couple days ago at their training, need more guidance and clarity on how best to enforce the organic seed requirement, and that remains a policy priority of ours and some of our policy coalition members. Funding and infrastructure for our public researcher remains a major need. We saw the improvement earlier in terms of increased investments going toward organic plant breeding and other organic seed research, but there is such a demand and interest in this type of research, but the resources just aren't there, especially in the public grant sector. And so we need to do more both in the way of advocacy as well as encouraging some of the private organic food companies who understand well the important role that organic seed plays in a healthy organic food future to further invest in this type of research, education, and outreach. We also need to build our capacity and infrastructure here in the U.S. to grow high quality organic seed that helps to fill some of the shortages and gaps in the supply. It's one of the major goals of our education program is to train more skilled organic seed producers of, in a number of scales, crops, and regions. We need to have more skilled organic seed producers so that we can make faster progress to building a robust organic seed supply. Finally, the burden of unwanted genetically engineered material in organic and other non-GMO seed varieties remains both a financial burden as well as a major risk to the credibility of organic products, as are restrictive intellectual property rights such as utility patents on plants or traits and seeds themselves that too often are inhibiting research, slowing down research, and creating a culture of fear, both in the public and private sector, that is slowing, we believe, innovation in the way of organic seed. The GMO and intellectual property rights issue is a major concern and remains an advocacy priority of ours and our policy coalitions that we work with. The challenges and opportunities are many, and I'm just going to stop there and hope that you'll dig into the report when you have some time. But I'm going to turn the mic over now to our next panelist to talk about some of the proactive solutions that we're working on to collaborate on moving organic seed forward. So thank you.
So I don't want to dwell too much on the issues that Kiki has already addressed, but hopefully all of you today know that organic agriculture is required to use organic seed if commercially available, and that rule has been implemented since 2002. Yet we still have that clause of if available because we don't have enough supply. And I reiterate this in particular trying to address the produce sector because I did sit in on the produce intensive a couple of years ago, and there was a retailer from Portland, Oregon, the hippest town in the United States, and when we had a side discussion about how to display and support produce sales in the retail sector, I said, what about a seed that said grown with, or a sticker that said grown with organic seed on the produce? And he said, what do you mean? Doesn't organic certification take care of that? And so I think that it underscores the fact that there is still a lot of the organic community that is not thinking about seed and not aware of some of these issues that we're bringing up today. But I believe that there is also a great potential in embracing a vision that at one day in the future, 100% of organic food will be grown with organic seed. And I put up this slide to underscore the issue that we are all stakeholders in organic seed. In organic agriculture, seed access is critical to the success of organic production. And oftentimes ownership of the seed that our farmers rely upon is owned by companies that don't have the organic sector in mind. It happens to be what has trickled down from the conventional seed sector and may or may not fit an organic farm, but it's all too often that those varieties get dropped from the trade because the company that owns those varieties is not paying attention to the organic market. So even if it is a top priority variety for organic farmers to use, it winds up getting dropped from the seed trade because it's being replaced with something else that works better in a conventional system. We also all have a stake in the integrity of our organic food supply chain, and supporting organic seed and starting from organic seed to product sale is the best way to ensure that there is organic integrity all along the production cycle. Organics or a conventional seed, it's very difficult to find good statistics on the amount of pesticides utilized in production of conventional seed, but we know that it is regulated differently than food products because it's a non-edible product and it's a long season crop. So it sits out there in the field long enough that you need to maintain weed-free with herbicides, you need to maintain disease-free with fungicides throughout a long production cycle. And that environmental impact is also part of the supply chain that we're supporting when we purchase conventional seed. Again, another opportunity to remember the foundation of organic agriculture is really premised in doing as little environmental damage to our environment as possible. Lastly, I believe the longer that we've been focusing on breeding for organic systems, the more exciting new research is coming out that points to the fact that organic plant breeding can not only deliver varieties that work in organic agriculture systems, but holds the potential to breed new varieties that actually enables organic agriculture to move forward. And we don't know what we don't have. And there's a great potential to actually breed new crops that enable organic farmers to produce better quality products, more products with less farming impact. So the other issue is that as you go along the supply chain from the seed grower all the way up to the eater, there's an increasing stepwise disconnect from seed. The farmer, the seed grower, is the one that actually has a first-hand contact with seed, and they have a close relationship with the seed companies that they grow for. And the farmers that make choices about which seed to buy, which seed to grow, to do variety trials on their farm, and take that extra effort to utilize organic seed when they can, they have a direct connection to that decision-making opportunity. But as you move up the supply chain to the wholesaler, the retailer, their connection is with the farmer and the relationship with the farmer. And so it's once removed. As you move up further, you move into the realm of retailers and processors. It's removed twice more. And the use of organic seed is not an issue that is even questioned in organic certification of handlers, whether or not the product that they're using was grown with organic seed, because that is completely pushed back onto the burden of the farmer and the farm inspection. Oops. Oh, very classy. So again, farmers are those on the front line making those choices firsthand. And by and large, the farmers that we work with get inspired to work on seed because as a produce farmer or a grain grower, they've been frustrated one time too many with not having access to the varieties that they need. And one time they go to the seed catalog and the variety that they're used to using is gone, and they say this is the final straw. This was the tipping point that brought farmer Nash Huber, who we work with quite a bit, into the seed trade, that as a carrot producer, he was relying upon a variety that was no longer available. So being an independent sort, as farmers are, he started growing his own seed, and that became a gateway to realizing that internalizing some of that management of seed was truly a risk management factor as a farmer, but also opened up this new opportunity to diversify his farm into seed production and to improve his agricultural production by actually engaging in plant breeding on the farm. Farmers also know that there are critical traits in the field, and I remind us all of this because all too often some of the more recent conversations about the need to breed new varieties for organic agriculture emphasize flavor and nutrition and aesthetic qualities, and the heirloom tomato is a perfect example. Organic farmers will plant an heirloom tomato because they have a good retail market for it, even though it does not have disease resistance that they need. So they wind up sacrificing with less yield, with more loss, with higher costs in order to meet that market demand. And I just want to feel a little bit of defensiveness when we engage in those conversations of remember what the farmer needs to succeed first and support your farmer, and then we can add to those robust field-based qualities, the aesthetic qualities that we want to bring to the market, but those have to go hand in hand in our discussions. Organic farmers are also extremely diverse. The organic food movement has followed this regional local food movement over the last decade, and that means that we're striving to grow a wide diversity of crops in a wide diversity of microclimates across the U.S. And this means that we need a lot of diversity of genetics to be developed, and this is, again, an issue that can be a barrier in organic seed development, and I believe that the more we're able to engage as a community on a national network level, the more we're able to see where some of these varieties might fit into multiple climates across the U.S. and collaborate on some of that exchange of both research, development, and germplasm. What are you laughing at? Are you laughing at my Mitt Romney? This is my my point with this slide is that we are not a one-size-fits-all, and we don't grow either okra, silver queen corn, or Mitt Romneys in the Northwest, but clearly we have stakeholders to serve across the U.S. So how do we breed for organic agriculture? There is a growing body of research that points to the fact that performance of varieties in organic systems often ranks very differently in conventional systems, and this just underscores the wide open opportunity to actually breed something that excels in an organic system rather than just utilizing the best fit of what's available. As Kiki mentioned, a lot of our work starts with variety trials. I mean, we certainly don't need to just breed everything brand new for organic agriculture, but begin to look at how currently available varieties work in organic systems, find the best of those varieties and start there to make improvements, as well as facilitate access to information about which of those commercially available varieties is available in organic seed form. So the other stakeholders, as we've already mentioned, there's a growing body of chefs that are excited about organic seed, organic plant breeding, and it's the fun side, that there is this opportunity to have something new, something different, and that we can collaborate to educate the public about the culinary values of our organic food chain. I just put this slide up to give a little shout out to the Culinary Breeding Network that's led by Lane Selman here in Portland, Oregon. And if you haven't checked out their website, it's an initiative to bring plant breeders and farmers together to engage in these same kind of conversations that David and I are trying to bring to the produce trade. Wholesalers, again, critically important. Adam is going to speak a little bit about some of OGC's initiatives in a moment. I shared this slide. This is a brand new ad campaign that is from Vitalis Seeds and Wholesome Produce. This is the first case ever that I've come across of a produce grower and seller, wholesaler, actually communicating that their produce was grown with organic seed. And their slogan is Vitalis, which is an organic seed company. Vitalis, born, wholesome, raised. And so I just want to give a little shout out to Wholesome. And also just reiterate that this is a prime marketing opportunity, that they're the first ones that have done this, but it's a way to add that extra value, that extra level of integrity in showcasing and promoting your produce to the public. And of course, eaters. There, as David mentioned, they are the consummate co-creators of our agriculture, and each of you in the produce and retail trade are the first line of communication with that public audience, and so you are truly an agent of change, being able to educate yourselves and being able to carry that message forward to the general public. Public plant breeders are vitally important. We need to support our public plant breeders. Organic Seed Alliance is very fortunate to have several public plant breeding partnerships across the U.S. And in our experience, they're extremely excited about working with the organic community, that there's so much enthusiasm. And they also often, just like our carrot breeder who's actually here at Organicology this week, have extensive germplasm collections that are extremely valuable to the organic community to have access to. So forging those relationships is important in leveraging public resources for organic plant breeding. We do carrot breeding with University of Wisconsin, Purdue, California, UC system. And we always engage growers not only in walking through the field, but then, of course, always conducting taste tests of those materials. There's also a growing community of participatory plant breeders, on-farm seed stewards, farmers that are diversifying into commercial organic seed production. And I just want to mention the critical role that they play in supporting this evolving new paradigm of organic seed support. And many of these are organic seed growers and plant breeders that you'll see in the audience here and throughout Organicology. So I just want to recognize that this is really a wide open opportunity and a grassroots movement that's beginning to emerge to support organic seed. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over to Laura Llewellyn, who is the produce manager for the Port Townsend Food Co-op. And the food co-op has had an ongoing relationship both with the farmers in our community in Port Townsend and Organic Seed Alliance, because our home base, our headquarters, is in Port Townsend, Washington. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. So just to say a little bit more about myself, I have a unique path I spent 11 years working and managing organic farms, and I've only been a retailer for a year and a half. I think this has given me a really interesting insight into the produce trade, and really I've recognized the connections between the two are strong and very important. I've been lucky enough to work at the Port Townsend Food Co-op as the produce manager there, where we have many missions and values that align with the general organic industry, seed industry, a lot of what we're talking about today. So specifically, it states in our company's mission and value, supporting local farms and the development of regional food production systems, and emphasizing the availability of local and regional products. So you can interpret this in a lot of ways, a lot of different ways we follow this mission and value. It's also in our food system development, our strategic plan, which lists food system development as one of the 5 parts of a strategic plan that we are working on emphasizing to actively collaborate with local and regional food system development. And so for that and many reasons, we have chosen to partner with OSA as well as other community partners to further these missions. So just to talk briefly about the produce department, kind of to sum up this slide, we really focus on buying local products whenever available. Our produce department is certified organic. We work with 38 different farms in the produce department alone. There's really, it depends on how you identify the main farms. We kind of have 10 or 12 main farms, whereas the rest of the store, in addition, only buys from, well, I shouldn't say only, but buys from 12 other farms. So as a store, we support 52 different farms. Being that the large percentage of that is in the produce department, I've really noticed our influence in our local sales. So what this slide says is that last September, when we saw the height of our local purchasing and sales, we had 44% of our sales in the produce department were sourced locally, whereas the store-wide had 15%. And as of just last week, the most recent numbers I could collect, we were at the low, since we've been tracking this number in the produce department. We've only been tracking this for just not even quite a full year. 11% of our produce sales were local, which I'm still pretty impressed with that number. And the store is at 8.5%. So as you can see, we're bringing a lot more local in the main growing season that really is swaying that store percentage up, whereas the difference is not so great at this time of year. So I should also explain that our definition of local is pretty small. We define our definition as the 5 surrounding counties around Jefferson County: Jefferson, Clallam, Mason, Kitsap, and Island County. So there's not a lot of large vegetable production in those counties. That's why I work with 38 different farms to have the strongest food system I can. As well, this last year, as being a certified organic produce department, we've also adopted a Farm Direct logo to really highlight those relationships that we have with the farms, to kind of separate out local, because local is a really greenwashed term. So I am stoked about the Farm Direct term. We try to really identify on our signage whoever the person is that we got the product from. Definitely always in the case of when it's Farm Direct. And as a success story, which Micaela touched on with Nash's carrots, that customers have really, when I started working there, we weren't currently buying any carrots from Nash. and customers were really asking for Nash carrots. And now that we've brought them back in, we definitely have seen an increase in our sales. I think that's both speaks to the great taste of the carrot and just, Nash's carrots. They're pretty great. So then moving on to as the co-op was looking at how to follow our strategic plan, we wanted to work with various community partners. And so we started talking to OSA and seeing how we could help them. So starting in 2009, we helped fund, some Novic trials, some winter hardy breeding trials. From there, we continued the relationship. There was a meeting that was had between our past marketing manager, our now current local cultivar was the produce manager at the time, the general manager, and Micaela to sort of learn about OSA, learn how we could work together. And the co-op left that project hearing, as Micaela said, the writing on the wall that temptation, the main sweet corn that is being used may or may not have a long-term viability. So the co-op came back and decided they wanted to invest specifically in a sweet corn that was geared towards our climate, which is a really short season. It's really hard to grow corn on the Olympic Peninsula. And so it's been a several-year project of working with OSA to see if we can get a good sweet corn. And so I'm pretty excited. Some of that corn was at the seed swap, if you guys got a chance to pick that up from OSA. It's not ready to be released to the marketplace yet, but there is some corn available. And we'll see, what the continuation is with the corn project. So just to reflect upon personally, in my job, what I see as the most important part is not selling produce. It's really helping to develop that local food system. And so I've really learned that supporting from the seed, we can't have produce without seed. We can't have food without seed. It's really the most important part. And as a produce manager, I've really seen the influence I have both on the farmers and on our customers. There's a great education piece that I am able to educate the customers about who we work with and their practices. So this is a slide that showcases the point of purchase material about the sweet corn breeding project. And I know personally I meet with all of the different growers that we work with, and we talk about what we're going to be growing in the next year. And just in planning for this presentation and talking to Micaela this winter, it kind of gave me some food for thought to sort of start asking those farmers, are they using organic seed? And just kind of opening up those conversations. And I've literally had, I'm just curious. I don't have an agenda in mind with that. But it was very interesting how many farms responded, are you going to make us, are you not going to buy our produce if we don't use organic seed? And so it's just it's given light on the fact of our position in the seed industry, which I would have not so intimately connected. So thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Barry Haynes, produce manager at Ashland Food Co-op in Ashland, Oregon. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of history about what's happened in Southern Oregon. Many of you probably do know that we have a GMO ban in Jackson County. We have some of those great people here that help make that happen. So a little bit of history on that. In 2013, there were 2 petitions that were filed, one in early 2013 in Jackson County and one in late 2013 in Josephine County. Those measures made the ballot and both were approved on the 2014 ballot. Seeing that coming, Oregon legislators approved SB 863 in October 2013, which was a preemption bill, which prohibited counties from regulating or banning GMOs and having any power over their local seed systems. An exception was provided for Jackson County. So that fight still continues. There's a lot of people who are working to overturn SB 863, and there is a House bill right now that is in House committee that would restore that right back to the counties. As far as Rogue Valley seed production, it is an ideal area for seed production. A lot of it is Zone 7, so long, dry summers and pretty mild winters. We have a lot of seed breeding efforts going on there right now, including the Southern Oregon Seed Growers Association, Siskiyou Seeds, Lupin Knoll, Oshala. A lot of those people are here at this conference too, and I encourage you to talk to them. I also have on there that there was a little bit of effort on the purple sprouting broccoli project that Adam will discuss later. So recently there's a seed research project going on. The USDA granted some money to determine some of these opportunities for GMO-free seed production. And what is hoping to come out of that, and we have Wendy here who is leading that project, and she'll be able to talk about that, but looking at the potential to increase organic seed production in our area and create a marketing terminology for that, like Micaela was saying earlier about having that on the sign, you know, this product was grown from organic seed. And it's going to take a lot of work to do something like that, because as organics are growing more and we have more of a population buying organics, we're finding that we have a lot of consumers who really don't even understand exactly what it means to be organic. And you mentioned a retailer who didn't know that you could grow organic produce from non-organic seeds. So there's a lot of education that still needs to be done. Consumer retailer mindset. It's the sad truth, but as much as you hear consumers say they want great tasting food, they really purchase based on looks. Even if you have something sampled out that isn't the nicest looking produce, but it eats amazing, when they go to the display, they're going to pick the nicest one out of there every time. It's just how we are as human beings, and it works that way at the growers market as well, with the farmer right there talking up that product, tasting it out. But the consumer, you know, they're looking for that big blocky red bell pepper. They don't want that meaty, soft red bell pepper that eats delicious and is perfectly ripe. So beyond aesthetics, after that, eating quality, consistency, availability, that it's always there and always available, the uniqueness, and then probably last comes the story on how it was produced and raised and where it came from. So, not to mention a lot of things that were already spoken of, but in our area, a lot of our high volume growers, they're still purchasing non-organic seed for their production. And I'm not a certifier, I'm not an inspector, so I do hear that there's the claims of lack of seed availability, but I do hear that it's cost prohibitive a lot of times. The high quality organic seed is more expensive. The cheaper organic seed that's available on the market sometimes has germination issues, lacks consistency, and they kind of get fed up with it and they buy conventional seed a lot of the time. We all know that the seed selection breeding program, it takes lots of effort and work. It takes years and years, season after season, season after season, to get the standard that growers are looking for. So as far as some other challenges, changing that consumer mindset, Port Townsend's doing a great job with their alliances, with their growers. That's something that we can learn a lot from at Ashland Food Co-op, building some of those relationships with these seed breeders, and really educating consumers over and over again about where the seed came from, how it was grown, sampling out diligently all the time, getting the food in people's mouths so that they know and can relate to those varieties. And the effective marketing that we really hope to get in the Rogue Valley, being a GMO-free seed sanctuary, that we can continue to grow our seed production there and possibly move that out and grow that idea of having a GMO-free seed sanctuary. So those are the challenges that we're facing. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Adam Wagner from Organically Grown Company.
Good morning. It's interesting to see someone get up behind a podium and talk into a microphone. It makes it seem like you're an expert. I'm not an expert, I'm just a fellow seed geek. When I was a kid, that would have been a negative connotation, which would have no doubt, once labeled as a geek, you were doomed to relentless harassment and probably imminent beatings. But it's a good word now, and we're all here together, and we're safe. So thanks for everybody for coming. So I have worked as an organic farmer for a lot of years. I left that to be a plant breeder, namely blueberries. Did that for about 10 years. And I learned a lot plant breeding. It taught me some very profound lessons in patience, in humility, in earnestness, and even hope, I think. And those are good lessons to learn. I left that position, even though I was passionate about the work, because it was a conventional breeding program. And I had misgivings with patenting plant material, exclusivity, and basically just controlling the price of food through patenting. And so I became uncomfortable with that, and I decided that I needed to get back to the movement, the organic movement. And I found a position with Organically Grown Company in the sales department, which was at that time, coming from being a scientist to being a salesman, was about as intimidating as standing up in front of you guys all this morning and talking. But I got to work in sales, and I was part of the movement again, and I was excited about that. I was passionate about that, and I was trained in sales, and I learned the system, and I learned all the systems throughout OGC, and I began to work with customers. And customers, over time, as a plant breeder, you're always focused on improvement. Whether that be quality, disease resistant, on and on and on. And so my mindset was always there, and I'd talk to customers, and essentially filling their orders, they would say, "Well, I want that mini mixed bell pepper, and I don't want the one that has the little brown ones in it." And so I began to hear things like, I don't want that romaine lettuce from grower X because it's leggy, it's soft, it's not working for me. So I began to hear and apply my breeder lens and say, oh, well, there's room for improvement here. It sounds like there's improvement we can be making. So I talked with David Lively, basically, and he said, yeah, well, let's get started on some projects like this. And so quite frankly, the first one was the mini mixed bell pepper. Oh, I went past it. Oh, I didn't. Okay, excuse me.
It makes me feel better.
So I'm going to break this talk is broken down into goals, short-term goals and long-term goals. And so I'll start with the short-term, and which was what I was alluding to, which is, improvement of our product line. That's it seemed to be a need for it. And so first thing to do is identify what it is we want to improve, whether it's genotypic or phenotypic, and then go from there. The first example I have is that mini mixed bell pepper I was talking about. The picture, the picture on the top here is that one I was talking about with the little brown peppers in it, and this one up here is this is one of our local growers, and this is also one of our ladybug growers, and these other two were just incidental from California and Mexico. But this isn't even genetic improvement. It's just loosely related. People were rejecting that lower left pepper in favor of the upper right. And so we were shrinking it out. A lot of it was getting wasted. Some people didn't mind it, a lot of people did. So I just simply contacted the grower of the preferred, oh excuse me, I'm supposed to be talking into this, the preferred pepper pack, and said, what's your seed line you're using? And of course he shared that with me. We bought the seed for the other grower and said, please grow this. He grew that. And next year, consistency. And I'm not trying to say that I think variety is a bad thing at all. I totally agree with that. But in this case, we were losing product because of inconsistency. So a very simple fix in that case. Next short-term goal is team up with OSA or other seed companies and ladybug growers to trial new varieties and advanced selections against standard varieties. And so that's a picture of a leak trial we did with some standard varieties, and we also worked with Vitalis Seed on that one. And I guess the idea there is we got to know what we're looking at. You have to trial it. Without trialing it, if you just tell a farmer, here, grow this, it's better than what you're growing, they're not going to do it. I can tell you from being a farmer, that doesn't work. You've got to show them. It's got to be on their farm. Next short term was novel commodity introductions. And this one's really important because it's not just improving, but it's expanding our product line, which is extremely important. In this case, this is purple sprouting broccoli, which has been spoken about briefly here. It was a number of years ago that Tom Lively from Organically Grown contacted John Navazio, who was working with OSA then, and was trying to figure out some sort of season extension or something to fill holes in our local season. And during that conversation, he brought up purple sprouting broccoli as a possibility for that. And OSA took that on with earnest and began breeding open pollinated selections of purple sprouting broccoli. And it was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago now that OSA had a selection they felt was commercially viable, and we wanted to do commercial trials and expand this. So I met with another seed company and looked at their trials and made selections of 3 varieties that would work for us, give us an extended season, the quality was good, etc. And then we planted that with the OSA selection and grew it out in a rather large, about half an acre of each selection or variety. Let's see. And this year we've expanded that by 50%. It was very successful. And we're still working with, although at the same time I'm still trying to find varieties to improve. So it's an ongoing project and a very exciting one, and one I'm very grateful to for OSA for giving me an opportunity to branch out beyond just sales. I mean, if you're not familiar with OSA, you really ought to be. Check out their website. I mean, I've wanted to work with the OSA ever since I heard there was an OSA. So check them out. It's a very good group of people. Okay, I think we go to long-term goals. Okay, so one of the long-term goals is to affect the availability of desired certified organic seed lines for ladybug growers. And I say for ladybug growers, but it's for all organic growers. Specifically, this talk was specifically about ladybug growers. But and what we want to do, how we feel like we can affect the availability, is creating demand. It's certainly what seed companies listen to. And if there's a big enough demand for organic seed, and even if it's all about money, if we can create the demand, there's money in it. So I do believe in my heart that many seed companies really do want to provide organic seed. And so that's part of the hope equation there. And then one project we're working on is to help influence this long-term goal is working with our growers to purchase seed, OGC purchasing the seeds, using our buying power to influence the demand. So if we have, for instance, 10 growers growing the same variety of broccoli, they don't need to buy it all themselves. OGC comes in, says we want to buy all of the seed, and that usually will get you a discount, and then we can pass that discount on to our growers, and we just sell it to them at cost. So that's another way to get sort of a visual, be noticed in the marketplace, is big seed purchases, organic seed purchases, and specifically saying to the seed companies, even if we know they don't produce the seed organically, rather than saying, well, we're not going to talk to them, we talk to them and we say, we want this, we're willing to buy a big chunk of seed, but we want it organically. Oh, well, we don't have that. Oh, too bad, we'll go to the next guy. So there's a little bit of politics involved, but I think that's what we need to do. The next one is work with cooperative organic breeding programs to help identify priorities for germplasm improvement. And that's, this is an ongoing thing. This is what OSA is all about. And there's a lot of meetings that OSA holds, sponsors, where we get seed producers, growers, wholesalers, everybody together in a room and discuss specifically what crops need to be improved, how they ought to be improved, etc. And then the issue that Kiki brought up about compliance with COG seed for growers. This is obviously a long-term goal, but it needs to start now. We need to be working on it now, because it's possible that the regulations could change and it becomes a requirement that all growers use certified organic seed. And if it's not available, that's going to cause a lot of problems. So we feel like it's time to start now, to be forward thinking now and get working on it to get this ball rolling before regulations change and we're all stuck. And this sort of goes right along with it. Help influence availability of open pollinated and public seed lines. This is very important to organically grown farmers being able to save their own seed and produce crops from saved seed. Open pollinated varieties are extremely important. We don't have to rely as heavily on hybrids that way, which seed companies control. And this last slide is sort of a schematic I designed of the feedback loop. I won't read it all to you, but on the bottom you can see those are the responsibilities of each entity. So if you're reading from left to right, it starts with breeding programs, and then what they do, and then OGC and our grower, or OGC growers, and then OGC as a distributing company, what their responsibilities are, all the way down to the end consumer or eater or co-producer, as we're introducing new language. And then you can see the mini feedback loops between each entity, and then the overall arching one back to the breeding programs. I feel like this is, as having been a breeder, it's extremely important to know, to have all these entities giving feedback on what they want out of it.
What does BP mean?
Breeding program, sorry.
Got it.
British Petroleum. And that, I'll conclude with this slide, who I just wanted to give a shout out to Juan, who participates very eagerly in these trials, on-farm trials on his farm. he's so eager about it. He's not a leek grower, but he agreed to grow leeks, to trial leeks for me, even though he had no interest in actually benefiting from it. So he's way into it too. So on every level. So thank you for your time today.